So now we're told the President's going to give a speech. He hasn't yet even discussed the danger we face. And we're told that the President is planning this major speech to discuss our long-term fiscal problem. Well, I'd say, first of all, it has to be considered a dramatic admission that his previous claims that his budget calls on us to live within our means, to pay down the debt, and not add to the debt, were false. They say that the President will support some of the recommendations in the Fiscal Commission, his own commission, Bowles and Simpson. I hope that's true. But I just want to say this. At this point in history, with the budget supposed to be passed in the Senate Friday, and we haven't even had a markup to have a hearing on a budget. We've not seen one other than the President's previous budget, which is so utterly irresponsible. I think he owes more than a speech. We hear a lot of speeches in this country, a lot from the President. What we need is numbers. What he needs to do is submit a new budget. If he's going to change his projections for the future and going to propose alterations in our entitlement programs, let's see the numbers. He's got, what, 500 people in the President's Office of Management and Budget? So if this is serious, let's have a serious proposal. The House has done it. The House, Republican House, they've got a budget. They're going to move that budget. I suspect we'll have that budget passed in the House by Friday. It's got real numbers, real integrity, real change that puts us on a path to prosperity, not debt and decline. So the President needs to lay out concrete, specific details about how he intends to solve these challenges that we faced, not a general speech. And the House and Senate Budget Committees must be able to review what he proposes. As the Budget Act presumes, the Executive Office of OMB, the President can do this. In 1996, President Clinton produced 4 budgets. And that shutdown occurred during that time, and they had a big fight during that time. But you know what happened 3 years later? The budget was balanced. Yes, it was a messy fight, and people made a lot of mistakes. But the end result was the American people said, you're spending too much. Congress rose up and said, we're not going to keep doing this. And they balanced the budget. We're in a deeper hole today. It's going to be a lot harder, but it can be done again if we meet the challenges. So the questions that must be answered by the President in the new budget are some of these. The Fiscal Commission recommends $1.3 trillion less in discretionary spending than proposed in the President's budget. How does the President plan to alter his budget to achieve those savings? The Fiscal Commission recommends finding $600 billion in entitlement savings, but the President's budget would increase entitlement spending by $905 billion. That's his budget he submitted already a few weeks ago. How does he intend to achieve these savings in entitlements? The Fiscal Commission recommendations would reduce our debt by $4 trillion. The Ryan plan would reduce it by $5 trillion, but the President's budget would increase the debt by $10 trillion and would not produce any savings, really. How would the President alter his original budget to reduce the debt by $4 trillion? I'd like to see something more than a speech. Give me a break. I'd like to see some numbers. Where? So we can discuss it. Once the President engages, we can have that long overdue national dialogue about solving the nation's problems. But he's got to acknowledge we have one. Rather than trying to drain every cent of tax revenue from the American people, Washington should try to drain every cent of waste from the federal budget. I hope this does not continue the pattern of retreat that is already emerging, where the President supports deficit reduction in theory, but resists it in practice, and claims credit when he's forced to accept reductions. For a president to abdicate his responsibility to lead the effort to meet one of the greatest challenges of our nation's history would be tantamount to leaving the battlefield in a time of war.